How are you? Slip by you with that. There you go. Thanks.
Welcome, Tiny Baseball.
Thank you. How y'all doing?
So, a big day, huh? You guys just announced
nothing going on today.
Look, I get here, and you guys are making news like every day. It's really incredible.
Well, we knew you were coming.
Thank you.
So we got,
So you just basically.
I knew you weren't going to do any research, so we just had to create it for you.
Well, I've proven that many times before when it comes to you, right?
Just make it up.
Just make it up, right? What you added Kashner and Ray to the starting rotation. I know we talked about this earlier in the week. You were looking for more pitching. What does this do for you now that you're moving forward?
Well, obviously we hope that, I think Andrew is the guy that turn it up. I can't turn it up. Well, Andrew is a guy that we think coming in is a guy with a big arm. I've seen him quite a bit from the standpoint of being in the same division in Los Angeles in the National League West. He'd struggled early, but it seems like lately he's been pitching really well. I know he's talked with him earlier today. He's excited about being here. And then Colin is a younger pitcher that's under control for a while that we think has a big upside, has pitched okay at times. We've seen him earlier, not as good at other times, but we think he's a guy that's with young kids coming up, that's not always who they are exactly when you first see them, that once those guys get comfortable, they take that next step. And that's what we think that Colin's capable of.
So have you already penciled them into the rotation at some point, or is that still to come?
We have penciled them in. Colin's going to pitch tomorrow. Andrew, we penciled in, but we have to make sure we talk with different guys. It's going to affect them. So like when I talk to you about lineups and things like that, we usually don't announce anything until the guys know themselves, so they don't hear about it, in the news.
So what do you have? Is it the same thing if I ask you what now is the composition of your five-man rotation? Is that the same answer, or can you give me a semblance of what that is now?
Well, it could be right now. There could be 6. So we still have to make a decision. We'll have an extra guy for just a little while until Justin Bohr gets back. He's got 3 days of rehab starting tonight in New Orleans, or with New Orleans. I'm not quite sure where they are, and then we'll have to make a decision on that.
So who are your other 5 guys at this point?
Well, if you look at Jose,
right,
Conley, Kohler, Kashner, Arena, Ray. 6 guys.
Okay, so you gave up a pretty good pitcher too in Kozar to make this deal, and that's always what happens. You have to give up good people to get good people. How about the fact that you had to give him up and where he was developing to?
Well, obviously the other day he pitched really well for us. He threw 5 innings scoreless. It's always tough when a guy looks like he's pitching well. He pitched early, struggled, went down to the minor leagues, had an injury, but came back throwing the ball well. And then, like you said, you have to give up something to get something. We feel like he's a guy that was going to be out of options next year. Then you kind of get caught in a bind, and we just felt like this was the right deal at the right time.
So looking at the standings today, you're 5 games out in the East. You're just really a smattering of games out in the wild card, and I was looking at it. There's like 7 teams within 7 games of the wild card. The 2 wild cards. Dodgers are up by 2. You're tied with Cardinals, I think now. So I mean, where do you place the team now that you've made this? I mean, you're having a great season, everything considered, for this run for the last 2 months of the season.
Well, you've covered us in Los Angeles. We don't speak about nothing but winning the division. We feel like the Nationals are a team that we can catch. We're 5 games back. We'll have games with them, but we've got plenty of games to play. The wild card is if it's something that you end up falling into, then it's a consolation prize. If you can't get to where you want to go, it's kind of like guys that you talk about you wanting to hit 300, you're trying to hit 350. If you end up at 330, then you're pretty happy. And for us, it's a matter of us trying to win the division. That puts you in the best position to move forward, to be able to set up your pitching, to have 5 games to win a series instead of a 1-game Russian roulette.
Donnie, I remember being there your first day of spring training as you joined this group from the Dodgers, and there were a lot of questions about how you were going to bring Osuna back after a slump in the sophomore season, what your rotation was going to be. Caps got hurt right away, and he was supposed to be your closer, and now he's included in this deal. From that point to the first half of where you are now, you have to be pretty pleased with the way things have developed here over the first couple of months of the season, aren't you?
Yeah, we're very happy with the club and the way they're playing. I think the one thing that I knew that maybe the baseball world necessarily didn't know, that this team's a really talented group. We've got a good group of young players, all kind of 26 and under. We got a couple guys that are older. Martin Prado, D. Gordon's older at 28. But we knew we had a talented group, a group that went through a lot last year, a group that was confident, which surprised me from the standpoint of when you talk to a group that's 20 below 500 last season, and you talk to them individually and they say, hey, we got a good team here. And they believed that, and we felt like there just needed to be some fundamental changes in the way you go about your business, the way you approach it, the outlook of your team, the attitude that you play with. And that's what we've tried to bring is how do you prepare, how do you get ready. You try to treat them like men, but you actually ask for that accountability back. All the little small things you would do in any business is really what we try to do here is basically again, set up a culture and make sure that it's a place that you can get your best baseball out of guys, and that they are part of they're part of that. They feel ownership in their own team, and that's what we try to create, and we're seeing some fruits of that right now.
I mean, I think people forget that even though you didn't go to the ultimate goal in Los Angeles, which was winning the World Series, you won 3 division titles in a row. You were very competitive every year, and you were doing this in a learning curve, becoming a manager for the first time after being Joe Torre's bench coach. And I think you basically learned from one of the great ones, obviously, who's in the Hall of Fame. He was probably, I would assume, a mentor to you in a lot of ways. What do you take out of the experience in Los Angeles that makes you a better manager here?
Well, I think anytime you go through, like you said, I was there for 5 years. We won 3 straight division titles at the end of that. Obviously, going through that in a major market with some great players, you're going to learn every year. Working for Joe, working under, played for Buck Showalter, played for Billy Martin, played for Lou Piniella, played for some really good managers. You learn from each one of those guys. Yogi Berra, everyone that you play with, play for, coach under. You take something from everyone and as part of that. And the same with managing in LA. You get experience that you bring with you. Now, when you come to a new situation, there's things you'd like to do differently. This situation is unique from the standpoint of it's a new start for me, but also with the organization wanting to move forward with a young group and asking myself and our coaching staff to lead this group. That is a kind of a change now in baseball. A lot of places, the front office is kind of running it. They hand to the coach, but the coaches really are kind of told what to do all the time. And it's been unique here from the standpoint of allowing us to do our job.
Well, for that matter, I mean, you played under George Steinbrenner. You coached under George Steinbrenner. You managed under Frank McCourt and the Guggenheim Group in the transition in LA, and now you're here with Jeffrey Luria and Sampson. So you've had a real array of people that you've had to adjust to, play for. You've had more experiences, almost as a player, manager, and coach than anybody.
I think I just have to say Mr. Steinbrenner, and then you're just like covered, right? When you work for Mr. Steinbrenner. But you're right. I think in all groups are different, and all their styles are different. I look at Mr. McCourt and very thankful for giving me my first opportunity. He believed in me early. Mr. Steinbrenner believed in me as a player and brought me back as a coach, which allowed me experience. I thought the Guggenheim group treated me great. Again, you learn from all different people, and Jeffrey is a great guy to work for because he loves baseball. He wants to win in the worst way. He's a lot like Mr. Steinbrenner in the sense of, he wants to do it now, and he's got his opinion, and it's going to be heard.
Do you have any funny Mr. Steinbrenner stories to impart on the crowd?
Funny?
Do you have any? Or interesting, let's put it that way.
Well, interesting. I feel like there was a time there that him and I were kind of butting heads a little bit. He had said something, I think I won an arbitration case. Right before the arbitration case, he told me, hey, Donnie, this is just business. Don't worry about it. It's, don't take it personal. And so I win, and then he rips me in the papers about the farmers in Indiana. I'm not a regular guy anymore. All I care about was money. So that was interesting. That was a little learning curve right there for me. I figured it was personal only if he wins, it wasn't personal, and if I win, it was personal.
So how did you deal with it in the long term there?
Oh, I think you just be respectful. I've always been respectful of the position. You're an employee. Mr. Steinbrenner was the owner. I always had respect for that. And always look at the bright side of about everything. He treated me very well. In the end, there's times you have to stand up for yourself. I stood up for myself in that situation, and I think from that gained his respect, the fact that I wasn't just going to sit there and take things. I was going to stand up for myself as a person, and after that, it was like we were just, old friends.
And the same thing with Joe Torre. What did you learn from him, and what kind of impact did he have on you as a person and a manager?
Joe's another guy. You learn. Joe's very calm from the standpoint of if you watch him manage or watch him on the bench, you don't see a lot of reaction. And Joe has a really good feel for the length of the season and how long the season is, how many ups and downs, and in your field, you're going to react to the 5 games that we've lost in a row and ask me.
Well, not all of us.
Well, I know, but in general, that's what's in the news is that last couple of days or 5 days or what's going on right then. And with Joe, you always felt a sense that he was still looking down the road. He knew that during that 5-game losing streak, he had to deal with these questions, but he also knew that a week, 2, 3, 4 days later, he could just as easily be on a 4-game win streak, and now it's turned a whole different way. And so as a manager, you learn to navigate where you're going. You know the length, there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. As a team, there's going to be ups and downs for each individual player. No matter how good they are, they're going to have struggles. So you learn to be able to flow with that. Show confidence in guys during that period. Show confidence in your team during that period. And then they, in a sense, coming back from that, they know at that point you understand, and you gain confidence and trust, knowing that you're not going to panic over a 4-game stretch, and you're not going to panic when they're 0 for 10. You know they're going to come out of it.
Yeah, I think you, as a great hitter, especially earlier in your career before injuries and stuff, even in your career, I mean, you batted 3 something, and your failure rate was 7 out of 10. That's a lot of failure rate. And when my son was young and playing baseball, that was the thing I tried to explain to him, getting through the failure rate. And I think you'd be surprised to hear from me as a writer that, having covered baseball for 40 years, I know the ebbs and flows of a season. I don't get caught up in short losing streaks and short winning streaks until a trend really starts to emerge. And I said to Ned Yost earlier in the year, when you have the losing streaks in September, that's when you start to worry about it because you're just running out of days. That's the way I look at it, and I think that's the way most players have to look at it too.
But I think, again, you still balance the length of the season, and as the season, gets down closer and closer, that there's only X amount of days. It's easy to say, hey, we got 140 games left, we've got 100 games left. But as you start getting into 30 games or 40 games left, those games are harder to make up, and you don't have the time. You can't afford to lose 3 or 4 in a row and lose ground in a big, a chunk of ground in a small stretch.
Yeah, I saw Bruce Bochy earlier in the season. We had this discussion, and he said it was like the end of May, and he said it's still early. So I go, when is it no longer still early? And he said the All-Star break. What's your opinion?
I look at the All-Star break similarly. I think you want to come out of the All-Star game playing well, and that's when you start thinking pennant race. Even though early in the season you have to try to impose upon your team the thought of we have to make every game important, and because there's so many games, guys we tend to just throw them aside. Oh, it's just a game here. We try to bring the importance of every game is important, every series is important. Let's try to keep that even keel where every game is we want to win. But as you come out of the break, you really want your team to kind of be focused on that daily grind of winning every day. And that's really what I've tried to do over the years is make sure teams come out of that break, use the break for the mental down 3 days, but come out of that break ready to play.
Do you find that the younger players, do they know who you are? Do they know what was on the back of your baseball card? The same thing with Bonds. Do they know who you guys are? And do they respect you accordingly because of it?
Well, they know Barry a lot more than they know me, that's for sure. But I think in general they don't, but they're pretty good at Google. So they're able to look you up, and then every once in a while a guy would come to you and go, man, you could hit a little bit, or something like that. But I think in general, the guys really care from the coaching side of it. They really care if you can help them, and that's what they really care about. If you're a hitting coach, they want the stuff you're telling me or helping me with, it's making sense and I'm having success. If that's going on, then you're buying. They may know Barry, but if it's not turning into success on the field, they'll be looking at their American Legion coach to help them if it's not working here.
So when we talked about it, I mean, you had a contract to stay with the Dodgers, right? I mean, you could have
1 year left.
Yeah, you could have stayed. Nobody pushed you out, right? But you made a decision that you wanted to come and work here because you wanted to develop players and work with younger players. Isn't that the case?
Well, I couldn't just leave. Right. Obviously, it was a little bit mutual. There was discussions of letting me go, and it was at the right time. I think in a market like LA, and if anybody that watches it, it's a pressurized market. There was a huge payroll, so there's a pressure to win more than just get into the playoffs. It is not quite enough for franchises like that. And so there was discussions back and forth, and I think it just became mutual from the standpoint, this is the right time. This is the best thing for both parties. There was no bridge burning on my end or their end, I don't think. I think we both handled it really well. I think it's worked out for them. They're playing very well. I hope the Marlins think it's worked out. I'm very happy, and our club's playing well.
And your interview process, my understanding with the Marlins was pretty extensive, wasn't it?
Yes. I mean, obviously I flew into New York to meet with Jeffrey and a few of his advisors, and then flew in here the next morning to meet with Michael Hill and his guys. I guess like any other process you have to go through to, so they know who you are and what you believe in.
So explain, Ichiro's in the lineup tonight, right? And who are you giving a rest tonight? I didn't see the lineup yet.
Christian Yelich.
Okay, so
it was tough to take out, but
he's 1 for 10 against Mike Leake, right? So,
a little combination tonight with each. It's as much as anything, it's for Christian. He's had a couple of days in a row where he plays every day, pretty much. And he's a guy that hits lefties and righties, so you don't really ever take him out of the lineup. But the last couple of days, you've seen a little bit more dragging the bat. and then with the combination of, I think he's 1 for 10 or 11 off of Leak, it just turns into the night, okay, this is probably the right time. Each should be in left field.
I think this group was very happy about that decision, right? Yeah. Because 2 hits away, and Ichiro, he's so locked in, he could easily get the 2 hits tonight, right?
I think so. I mean, he's swinging the bat so well. He's been, if y'all, I'm sure you're following, and I don't know how much you followed him, but just a tremendous player for us this year, a tremendous player in his career. This guy is a machine as far as working out, everything that he does on a daily basis. He's been a great example for our young players as far as his routines. They don't change just because he gets a couple of hits or doesn't get a couple of hits. He stays on track, on course, and that's really good for young players because they tend to have a bad day and then they change their swing, and they have a good day, they stay with it. Another bad day, they change again. And I think it's really good for a guy like Ichiro around is that they see that, you know, the Hall of Famers, the greats of the game, they don't change their swing on a daily basis. They just stay with the program.
I think you explain it to us every day, and I know you understand more than anybody that, you know, here's a guy who started the season 65 hits away from 3,000. So every day you're going to get the question, when are you going to play him? How are you going to play him? It's a process question. You know, you have to ask the question to get an answer, to convey it to everybody out here so they know what you're doing. But explain to everybody how difficult it really has been to balance Ichiro with we have one of the great young outfields in baseball with Osuna, Yelich, and Stanton, and Ichiro, I think Ichiro thinks he could start and lead off and play center field every day.
Probably. And it's hard to argue with him right now. He's hitting 330, 340, whatever he's doing. But honestly, looking at the season from the very beginning, if you'd have said, okay, all 3 of your outfielders are going to stay healthy the whole time, Ozuna's going to be an all-star player, Yelich going to be hitting 300, Stanton's going to have over 20 homers and 60 ribbies, you're going to say, when do you get Ichiro in the lineup? And that was the thing that it was hard. There was a possibility that he didn't reach 65 this year from that standpoint. But we've had some guys get hurt. Yelich was hurt for like a week. I think each threw up like 12 hits in one series here. It seems like every time he pinch hits, he gets a hit. Stanton was out for maybe a 5 to 7 day period. He played during that period. Then you use him to give guys days off, and he's just been fantastic in every way we've used him. He can play all 3 outfield spots. He's above average runner, he's above average thrower, he's above average defender. I mean, he's been really, really good this year, and we feel like that we've used him less. He played 153 games last year. I think he got 60-something hits.
Right. He batted like 230 or something.
Yeah, had a different year. We feel like we needed to use him less and could get more from him, and keeping him rested. And so every time he plays, he's at full strength for the most part. Then you get more production.
Does he understand that? Are you able to communicate?
Yeah, Each is great. Each speaks great English. I think this is the way that's been going on, is the way he likes it, because he knows, I think, at this point in his career that he is the extra outfielder. He sees the talent of the other guys. Everything's been open up front. Everything we've been doing is about winning. It hasn't been about him. And in a sense, I don't think he wanted it to be just about him. He didn't want to be a sideshow. He wanted to be part of a good team, and that's what I think he is right now.
Well, I mean, earlier in the season, when we discussed this, I think even in spring training, and he was talking about he couldn't even put a finger on when he might break this record because he didn't know how much he was going to play. So I said, yeah, well, you have one of the best young outfields in baseball here. And he goes, well, I'm young too. So I go, yeah, not as young as those 3 outfielders each. I mean, but that's always been his mindset, and he said he wants to play until he's 50. He has an option to pick up. You guys have an option on him for next year. I mean, I would think it's probably a slam dunk that you're ultimately going to pick it up, don't you think?
Well, since I don't have to pay any of it, I'll just pick it up now. So, but we better talk to Mike Hill and the rest of them about that. But
I asked David that question the other day, and he said, well, we have made a decision on it. We haven't even announced it yet. And I go, it sounded like you with your lineups.
What am I going to say to that?
So otherwise, is that the biggest surprise you've had this year, to have that guy and have him play the way he's played?
Each has to be one of them. I think Marcelo Zuna in center field has to be another. He's had a really, really good year. And coming off of a rough year, I think we all seen the talent. But, to bounce back to be an all-star, end up starting in center field for the National League team. We've had a lot of good things happen. Martin Prado's been outstanding. Our kid JT, Riamuto behind the plate's an outstanding player. A lot of good things have happened. Jose's been really good again. But each obviously hitting, what's he hitting, 340 something, 330 something, doing what he's been able to do so quickly has been a big surprise.
Plus, you got through that little slump Stanton had that was kind of perplexing to everybody. How did that work itself through?
I think it worked itself through from the standpoint of this team thinks they're good, and that we were here to win no matter what happened. It's kind of like we talked about in spring training. No matter what goes on, we're going to have to find a way to get where we want to go. So no matter if it's a guy struggling, a guy gets injured, whatever happens, we have to find a way to get to where we want to go. And that's a group effort. That's not one guy. And so one guy is not going to make your team successful, totally successful, or total failure. We knew it was going to be a group effort to win. We had to be able to sustain. Giancarlo's struggling for a period of time. We've been able to do that, and that's because we've got a lot of guys that can play.
Well, I know we could probably keep you here forever, but it's great to talk to you. Good luck tonight, the rest of the weekend, the rest of the season. I'll be around. Thanks a lot for being with us.
All right, Barry. Always good to talk to you.